In a culture of opposing opinions and challenging times, how do you get your head above water and get a breath of fresh air? You look for hope. You look for answers. And we shift from silos of segregation to social engagement in a quest for solutions. Stop talking about what the problem is and let's discuss how to fix it. Join us now as America Connects with your host, Rob Dalton.
Hello, good morning or good afternoon or good evening, depending on when you're listening or watching. This is America Connects. I'm Rob Dalton. We do a show here often, and it's not about the typical circle talk of talk radio or talk podcasting. What we do is we are in a mode of answers and solutions. And what we do here, and we do every week, is we pick one topic and we introduce that topic. And then we have a few people, sometimes experts, sometimes people just like you that come on board and they tell us or you tell us what we need to know about that particular topic, because we're trying to shift from the toxic talk and the circle talk into a concept of resolution, understanding, and solutions. So thank you for joining us today on America Connects. Today's topic, it might, when you first hear it, it might sound a bit uninteresting or maybe over your head, but I promise you, if you stick around, you're going to learn something. Today's show is cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and what is the future of our money. We have to know what we're going to be doing in next year or the next 5 or even 10 years. Where is this going in our future? So let me introduce the topic. We have a panel of 4 people today, and we'll get to them. But let me introduce first the concept and where we're going today. First, I want to thank UBNGO Studios for hosting the podcast today. It's always nice to be back in studio with Tony, our master. So thank you to UBNGO. Today's topic, cryptocurrency and the future of money. So let me get into it a little bit. As we get started here, I want to understand that we are moving slowly out of into a cashless society. We're noticing, especially now with the pandemic, and even today and in the near future, we're finding more and more retail operations are moving away from cash. More and more retailers are doing away with accepting cash because of the possible transference, as we know, of COVID-19. So here is another step in the process or the progress of moving into a cashless society. Sometimes it's by choice, sometimes it's natural evolution, and sometimes, like this pandemic, it's forced upon us. Now, going back to the history of money, and first, let me say that I am not an expert in this category, but the people on my panel today are. So if I say anything wrong, panel members, please know you're welcome to correct me. But when we go back to the history of exchanges of cash value, we started out with a barter system, and that was simply goods for services in exchange for other goods and services. Then we moved into currency and cash. And then over the last a couple generations, we've worked into a plastic card society. And then we've gotten lately into more debit because credit was getting a bad rap. So now we're getting into cashless elements and exchanges with debit cards. And now we're getting into, in between friends and even businesses, PayPal, digital exchanges like Venmo and others. And so we got to wonder what's next. Now, cryptocurrency has been trending. If you take the scale and map of the growth of cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin, and you put it up against the early growth of the internet, you'll find that those growth patterns are nearly identical. So the internet, what was once back at the turn of our century, a very slow and growing process, has turned into something that runs our country. Is this the future of our money system as well? We don't know, but we are here to discuss it today. Money, another thing you may hear today is something called fiat money. Fiat money is the actual paper or coin and the government assigns its value. So you may hear the term fiat money come up, and I wanted to explain that as well in advance of the conversations. But the paper and the metals actually have value because the government says it's that value, and that's what the fiat money stands for. Plus, we have the cost of actually printing and creating the coins, the paper, the counterfeiting technologies, the cost of the coins, all that costs money. So making money actually sometimes can lose us money, but the cost of making money costs money. Is it time for that? Another term you might hear today is called decentralized, and that's getting rid of the control and the control and the monetary system of money. We'll get into that with some of our guests as well, but I wanted you to be aware that decentralized may come up. Something else that may come up is something called the blockchain, or it's a ledger service where how we keep up with the transactions as they occur. So when you get into an exchange of currencies, somebody has to keep up with the processes as you do with your bank statements and credit card statements. This is going to be something that may require third-party apps, much like your iPhone, for example. Your iPhone or your Android phone would simply be a communication device if it wasn't for the third-party apps that make the phone so much more functional. So we may find ourselves developing third-party apps to keep up with the transactions and the ledgers of the exchange of cryptocurrencies. And then we may get into elements about transitioning. If let's say crypto becomes even more popular in 18 months, how do we blend cash and cryptocurrencies and as we transition from one to the other, if that's what's going to happen? So again, I am no expert, but our panel members are. So that is our topic today. And I hope you stick around because I have a feeling you're going to know more at the end of this show than you did when you woke up this morning. And that's at all levels. So I want to first thank you again for joining us today here on America Connects, and stick around. I think you're going to enjoy the show. First, let me welcome our primary guest today up front. His name is Larry LaBorde. Larry, welcome to the show. Thank you.
Thank you. It's good.
Larry, he is the president and CEO at the Silver Trading Company since 2001, just after the turn of the millennium. Silver Trading Company has offered high volume sales of gold, silver, platinum to serious investors around the world. And so currencies and exchanges are his forte. So, Larry, it was a big introduction, but I want to introduce you and tell us the one question I want to ask everyone today is, what is the future of cryptocurrencies and what is the future of our monetary system?
Well, you have to start off with the history of our monetary system.
Good.
Now, if you go back to Aristotle said there were 5 reasons that gold made good money. And they're relative. Number one, the first one is it's got to be durable.
Okay.
You don't want to save in something that's going to disappear. The second, it has to be divisible because you have to be able to divide it up for small transactions. Third, it's got to be consistent. One piece of currency has got to be just as good as the other. Next, it has to be convenient. You don't want to have to carry around large stones or something.
True.
And then finally, it has to be intrinsically valuable. Now, people have used cows, they've used salt, they've used all sorts of things in the past. But gold sort of fit the bill, and it worked. It's portable, easily divisible. 1 unit of gold is just as good as the other.
And it was global, too, and early on.
Oh, exactly.
As people traveled, I think the history is that we found different people had in different countries in different areas of the world were all practicing gold to start with.
Right. So it was just a convenient first money, and it's been used as money for 5,000 years.
Wow.
The gold has a nice long history to deal with.
That makes sense.
But if you want to go up into the future a little bit, we'll move forward some. If you go to King James in England.
Okay.
King James came up with the tally sticks. I don't know if any of your listeners have ever heard of the tally sticks. It's really a fascinating story because it gets down to the heart of the matter is what gives a currency its value.
Right.
Well, King Henry, he had the Chancellor of the Exchequer, who was just basically the royal treasurer, cut several sticks of a certain length. He carved notches in a certain pattern on these sticks, and then he split the sticks in half. So he goes out and he tries to spend half of the sticks.
Okay.
Well, the merchants, if he needed grain for the castle or food for the castle or whatever the king was buying, the merchants at first didn't want to take the tally sticks. Why should we take a tally stick in exchange for, our commodities? And the Chancellor of the Exchequer said, well, that's fine. You don't have to take them. We can pay you in gold coins. But at the end of the year, the king's going to collect taxes. And the king is only going to accept tally sticks in payment of taxes. And if you don't have any of these tally sticks, the king's men are going to take you off to jail, confiscate your lands, throw your wife and children out on the streets to starve the next winter. At which case the merchant usually said, well, fine, how many of these tally sticks are you going to give me?
It's a little extreme. So he won them over. Yeah.
Exactly. So what gave the tally sticks their value? The fact that the taxes were collected in tally sticks. So fast forward, we're going to keep moving forward again. By the way, the Bank of England finally burned the tally sticks in the early 1800s. They didn't like the competing currency.
Ah, yes.
They bought them all up and burned them. But they circulated for hundreds of years, believe it or not. If you go forward to 1913, 1913 is when income tax was passed, and it's also when the Federal Reserve Act was passed. And it's no coincidence that they were both passed at the same time.
True.
Once again, the taxes are collected in Federal Reserve notes, which gives the Federal Reserve notes their value.
Got it.
Because again, if you don't pay your taxes in Federal Reserve notes, men will come with guns, put you in prison, confiscate your assets, and throw your family out on the street. It's the same deal.
But yeah, forced into submission, sure.
That's right. Things haven't changed very much. So when the country started out during the Revolutionary War, the Continental Congress printed Continentals. They had no gold to back them. They just printed the paper money and spent it. George Washington complained it takes a wagon load of currency to buy just a handful of provisions because the currency was devaluing so quickly.
Sure.
For instance, they said you could buy a barrel of whiskey, and by the time you drank all the whiskey, the empty barrel was worth more than the full barrel was. It was devaluing just that quickly. And then there was a little coup d'etat called the Continental Convention, the Constitutional Convention. Yes. It was the first coup d'etat here in the United States. Most people don't really realize it. Anytime you hear people calling for a constitutional convention, you've got to remember the last time that was done, we were operating under the Articles of Confederation. You probably remember that way back in civics class or something.
Yes, yes.
So all the states called for a constitutional convention to tweak the Articles of Confederation. And there were 10 presidents before Washington under the Articles of Confederation. And those are forgotten presidents. They each served for 1 year. Washington's actually our 11th president, but he's the first president under the new Constitution. So anyway, the Constitutional Convention got together. They met in the summer in Philadelphia, upstairs, closed all the windows and locked all the doors because they didn't want anybody to know what was going on. And then they had George Washington actually head up the Constitutional Convention. Now, there's a reason for that. Every banana republic, tin-pot dictator knows you have to have the military behind you. True. First and foremost.
You got to have the muscle.
And George Washington represented the muscle.
Yes.
There's only been 2 commanders that have actually had the title of commander of all the armies. One is George Washington. The other was General Pershing. But those are the only 2 that ever had that. Okay. So Washington really didn't do much in the Constitutional Convention other than just sit in the chair, preside over it, and imply that the Army was behind whatever happened behind those closed doors.
So I remember as you're mentioning some of these things, they're all coming back to me, and they got filed away pretty deeply. So it's nice having the refresher class. Where are we in the past several years with all this?
Well, what happened, though, there was such bad feeling of the continental devaluation that one of the first things that in the new Constitution, they put in there that only Congress shall coin money. And then in the first one of the first acts of the new Congress was the Coinage Act. And it authorized the definition of a dollar.
Got it.
And the definition of a dollar under the Coinage Act is so many grains of fine silver. And it was a take on the average weight of the Spanish mill dollar that was minted down at the Mexican Mint. So that was the value of the dollar. And there's only 2 things that actually under federal law constitute the death penalty. One is treason and the other is counterfeiting the currency.
Ah, well, that's not the case today.
Right, exactly.
There'd be less of it if there were.
Well, and then if you remember, Hamilton actually pushed for the stronger central government. He ended up being the first Secretary of Treasury. They started the first national bank, which was a private bank, and it was the National Bank. The charter ran out on it, keep going years forward. And then the second national bank was chartered. And then when Andrew Jackson was elected president, he got into a little tiff, and he didn't like the concept of the national bank. He was a hard gold coinage guy. So he did several things. He refused to renew the charter of the Second National Bank. Biddle was the head of the bank. Biddle supposedly was behind several assassination attempts with Jackson.
Okay.
One of which, Jackson was a little short guy. He was about 5'0", really feisty. When he was an old man, one of the assassins came up in the Capitol, drew 2 pistols. They both misfired at point blank range. And President Jackson almost beat the assassin to death with his cane before several people pulled him off of it.
I think I'd heard that, yeah.
But he was a feisty guy. But Jackson's big claim to fame is he claimed he killed the national bank. He refused to renew the charter in spite of Biddle's best interest to lobby Congress. So from the whole time Jackson was president up until 1913, when the Federal Reserve Act was passed, the third national bank came into existence, we operated without a national bank. What the government did is they just simply coined money.
Okay.
So, for instance, they operate what was called free minting. If you brought in your gold dust, you bring in an ounce of gold dust, they would stamp out a almost 1 ounce coin. It was 0.9625 ounces.
Yeah.
The difference between that and 1 ounce, the mint kept as seigniorage. That's what they operated the mint with. And so what the government's job was, according to that, under that period of time, was just simply to regulate the money, to check the purity of the gold, and to stamp out a unit that was easily divisible and recognized, just like Aristotle had.
And consistent.
And that's what we operated on up until 1913.
Got it.
It was on gold and silver coins. And the government, all they did was mint them, keep a little of the gold and silver for the seigniorage, and regulate the value thereof.
And then the Federal Reserve in 1913.
Then the Federal Reserve Act comes in 1913.
Right. Okay.
Well, that's what gets interesting. We were under fractional reserve banking. So most people don't realize how money comes into existence. There's a lot of talk about quantitative easing and the Federal Reserve setting the interest rates. And the Federal Reserve is a private bank. It's owned by bankers.
Okay.
So it is a private bank. It's no more federal than Federal Express is federal.
Okay. I like that analogy.
Right. Most currency is what we have. What we have now is actually fiat currency.
Correct.
Yeah, from 1913 up until Nixon in 1971. Well, we'll skip a step. We'll go back to Franklin Roosevelt. Roosevelt actually took us off a common gold standard. At the time, 1 ounce of gold was worth $20. Roosevelt made it illegal to own gold, called in all the private gold, and then a month or two later devalued it to where instead of 1/20th of an ounce of gold, it was 1/35th. But then the dollar was equal to 1/35th of an ounce of gold. Nixon got rid of the gold standard, so he devalued the dollar.
Okay. Now,
central banks around the world could still exchange dollars for gold. The private citizens in the U.S. could not. So we were on a quasi-gold standard after FDR. And what that did is it kept the balance of trade fairly evenly. Let's just say we manufactured goods and sent them to Europe. Europe manufactured goods and sent them to us. Well, we would pay for each other in our own currencies, and then we'd settle up, and only the difference was settled in gold. So long as we traded in roughly the same amounts of goods back and forth, it was a very small amount of gold that actually changed hands, just the difference.
Okay.
When Nixon closed the window in 71, that was after Johnson's Guns and Butter program where we were printing up more money than we should have to finance the Vietnam War, and then we had the Guns and Butter, the butter being the Great Society welfare programs that LBJ was also pursuing at the same time. So we were spending way more money than we were taking in on taxes, and we were borrowing the difference. The French, de Gaulle especially, thought that we had overprinted the currency. So he was buying up U.S. dollars. He was sending the U.S. dollars to the United States in warships, demanding gold, and the gold was flowing back to France. I mean, it was a smart move on de Gaulle's part.
Yes.
Well, so much gold was leaving the United States at that point. Nixon panicked, closed the gold window, and says the dollar is now no longer convertible to gold to anyone, central banks or not. So at that point, I mean, you can look at all the charts and curves. In 1971 forward, we were all fiat. Absolutely nothing backed the dollar anywhere other than full faith and credit.
And where are we today?
Well, not only did the United States start printing a lot of money, every central bank in every country started spending a lot of money. So today you hear things like the dollar fell.
Yes.
Or the dollar rose. Well, actually, all currencies are falling in value. When it says that the dollar rose, that meant the dollar didn't fall as fast as everyone else.
Right.
When it says the dollar fell, it means the dollar was falling faster than everybody else.
Right.
So, it's all sort of relative. But everybody's printing. So there's absolutely nothing that backs the currency other than full faith and credit.
Larry, that's an incredible history. Thank you for the recap on all that and bringing us up to speed from back then to now. So, joining us are some other panel members. I wanted to introduce Dawn Melosh, Sam Cheatham. Hello, y'all. Nice to have you with us. We also have Chris Fornof, who we're getting the video for. But we've spent some time talking with Larry LaBorde, and he's given us a very rich history of the history of money, currency, and not just here in the United States, but the world, but especially here in the U.S. since the Constitution and especially since the Federal Reserve in 1913. So I want to get into the rest of the group and the rest of the panel. I want to take a moment and reintroduce the topic as cryptocurrency. Where are we today, and what is the future of money? So my first panel member I wanted to bring in is Dawn Melosh. Dawn is an IT project manager with over 25 years experience in multiple industries, having managed multi-million-dollar project budgets. But in the past year, past little time, she's a self-taught investor with a portfolio that contains a range of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, precious metals, stocks, IRA, property, and, as we discussed, fiat cash. So, Dawn, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I'll ask you the same question I ask others. Cryptocurrencies today and tomorrow, what is the future of our money and monetary system?
Well, I think there's, two directions we can go. We can either evolve into the decentralized cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, or we can kind of repeat the government-controlled monetary system, which is the fiat currencies. I think the key for us to really have a successful future as a people and to get control of our money would be to go to the decentralized cryptocurrencies. And I do believe that's the direction it's going. I think everything is going in the cryptocurrency direction. It's just going to be a matter of, is it going to be a government fiat type of cryptocurrency? Because they will release, I think, with the next stimulus package, some form of a digital dollar, an e-dollar or crypto dollar, whatever they're going to call it. That's what I believe the coin shortage was about, is to slowly start moving people towards the digital system. And so there could still be that government controlled fiat digital dollar. But I believe the key to a true free monetary system is to separate the government and politics from our monetary system. And the way to do that is with the cryptocurrencies that are decentralized, like the Bitcoin, because it's a peer-to-peer system. It's free. There's no central entity controlling you can participate in the monetary system or not. The current system we have is very restrictive as far as who can even participate with it.
Okay.
So I believe going to decentralized is the key and is the best way for the future.
I like that. You mentioned the decentralization of it and removing the government from the process. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, because right now the dollar and all of the fiat currencies, it's government-controlled currencies. Our politics is completely intermingled with our monetary system, which means the people that want power and control are going to control the monetary system, kind of, which is what is occurring now. But with cryptocurrencies, it's decentralized. There's absolutely no government control. There's no centralized authority that tells you can participate, you can't participate. There's no other centralized authority making rules and changing rules on the fly. It's really people being in control of their own money and being able to trade, the fruits of their labor and having control of the fruits of their labor and being able to participate within the monetary system. I mean, think about our current banking system now. Good luck being a young person of color or someone of Middle Eastern descent trying to even open a bank account. Yeah.
There are limits, class restrictions and such. And also, do you think this is contributing to the separation of the classes? The 1%,
I do believe,
so to speak.
Absolutely. There are certain areas within our monetary system where you have to be rich before you're even allowed to participate. And they've loosened laws in some areas and will consider maybe letting other people in. So it's really very much an us versus them. And, you know, us is I call the we the people. I mean, think about how the class separation would work. So, for example, looking at what's going on with Black Lives Matter, which is another decentralized entity. That's the reason it can't be kind of brought down and shut up, and they're continuing to move forward with getting the equality they want. So all of us that want equality and justice in the world and everybody to be treated fairly, if we all decided, you know what, we're taking our money out of fiat cash, we're all going to invest in Bitcoin and a non-fiat cryptocurrency, so the decentralized cryptocurrency, all of our businesses are not going to accept the fiat cash. We're all going to accept the cryptocurrency, the decentralized, and basically pulled out of the government monetary system that is unfair and has inequality in it anyways, then immediately that group would be the group of power. And talk about cancel culture. Don't defund the police. Just do a cancel culture on the dollar. Everybody go to crypto, move your money there. If this happened quickly, I mean, that would completely change the world. I mean, it would. Right now, the dollar is still the backing entity of all the other fiat currencies. When other countries, their currency is about to fail, everybody goes to the dollar. Well, the dollar is collapsing as the backing currency of the world. And that happens on a regular basis. It usually happens every 50 to 100 years. It's happening right now to the United States. The question is it going to be another fiat currency and another political government taking over control of the monetary system? Or is everybody going to go to a decentralized cryptocurrency and take over and have the people take control of their own finances and their own monetary system? And then we pay the government based on what actions we want them to do, not them controlling the monetary system and controlling our lives. It would flip the switch in a heartbeat if everybody immediately migrated over to a decentralized cryptocurrency.
That is bold and radical, and we may be moved to that. Who knows? Thank you, Dawn. I wanted to bring in our next panel member, Sam Cheatham. Hello, Sam. Hi, nice to have you with us. Sam is a mechanical engineer graduating from SMU, worked in the energy sector, primarily in oil and gas, as well as a utility solar farm setup. And he's interested in rare earth elements, cryptocurrency, and for fun, climbing all 53 14ers in Colorado. Sam, I'll ask you the same question I have the other panel members. Cryptocurrencies as a currency, what is the future of our monetary system, in your opinion?
So I've primarily gotten into it as an investment. I've always believed in its potential. I believe it can possibly be worth up to $100,000 per coin. Wow. But I've always been a believer in that Bitcoin, just Bitcoin, not any of the other alternative coins. Okay. And there's been a lot of hype associated with the other coins, and I think that access to Bitcoin gives someone in Africa, for instance, the ability to conduct transactions with relative ease compared to how it would have gone before. I mean, it completely.
That's true. It is a great equalizer of sorts.
There's a picture of a man who's mining out of a little house in Ethiopia, and I thought that was always really cool, and that's what inspired me to start mining myself.
So he inspired you, yeah. I'll be darned. This is a great equalizer because anyone can do it. I'm still learning the process myself, which is one reason I wanted to bring everybody in today for the show, so we can educate the others as well. But there's a lot to learn. As a great equalizer, anyone can mine a cryptocurrency. I know that Bitcoin is one, but there are others, correct?
Oh, that's correct. Yeah, there's quite a few others. You have Ethereum, Dash, just to name a couple. You've got Ox, but they all are based off of Bitcoin. They move with Bitcoin.
Okay. So Bitcoin like leads the parade, so to speak.
That's right. Yeah. Okay.
And there are many other
price change. All the other coins will follow.
Okay. Good. Can anyone mine the coin? Cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies are they? They're not given to you, but explain the mining process for me.
The mining process?
In layman's terms, so people know where it comes from. Because I know with our cash system, our fiat cash system, we're given money through paychecks and for the government. But where do you and how do you mine cryptocurrencies?
So mining is basically validating transactions. Okay. And so the entire network depends upon a lot of computing power to validate the transactions. And an economic incentive is receiving cryptocurrency in exchange for your computing power. So mining basically just involves buying the hardware or reprogramming existing hardware, like on your CPU, okay, or your graphics processing unit, to mine a specific algorithm or hash a specific algorithm.
Okay, and this requires quite a bit of power. Okay, I've heard of in watching some documentaries about it as well. There are mining farms as well that you can buy into, and it does the process for you. Is that right?
That's correct. Okay. I myself have actually set up a farm. I have only about 50 miners, but I know of a lot of people who've invested in like cloud computing, having stake in big old operation in Iceland, for instance, or somewhere where the electricity is nice and cheap. Yeah.
Because it takes a lot. It does take a lot.
Quite a bit.
It takes a lot. I wanted to bring back Larry real quick. Larry, can you help us to define for everyone what is the source and the root of the cryptocurrencies?
Well, first, I'd like to comment on what Dawn said about will this...
Oh, yes.
Will we end up into a libertarian system, or will the government actually take control of crypto? And I mean, my power is always pried from a cold, dead hand. And right now, U.S. currency is a political tool. And a lot of the world politics are handled or pushed around with U.S. monetary policy. For instance, foreign policy tool, Kissinger started the petrodollar, where we made our deal with the Saudis. You look at what happened in Libya with Gaddafi. Gaddafi was going to set up a Pan-African community with all the African countries and use the Islamic gold dinar and the silver dinar as a medium of exchange. Well, France is always, that's been their bailiwick in Western Africa. And so France and the United States invaded, killed Gaddafi, and then the gold stash that he was going to use for the dinar mysteriously disappeared. So anyone that tries to actually challenge the U.S. dollar, usually there's a naval aircraft carrier parked offshore pretty quick. The real challenge is going to be from China. They're actually too big to push around right now. So I believe, I would love to see a libertarian view to where power to the people, everybody used independent cryptos, or usually used whatever money they wanted to, cryptos or whatever. But I don't think governments will ever give up that. I think eventually the blockchain will be co-opted by the Federal Reserve, or the Federal Reserve will start their own cryptocurrency. The one big problem I see with regular cryptos as they exist right now is a cost basis. If you're using Bitcoin to transfer funds, wonderful. If you're using it to store funds, wonderful. But let's just say you buy $1,000 worth of crypto, you have a cost basis of $1,000, and you make 100 small transactions with it. Every time you make a transaction, you've got to keep up with the gain or the loss and then report all that on your income tax at the end of the year.
Okay.
So the government, the IRS, could squash it pretty easy if they wanted to with the income tax.
Okay. Do you see that happening?
Do I see it happening? I don't see the government giving up the huge privilege of currency without a big fight.
Okay. Yeah. Or they feel threatened. Yeah.
Oh, anytime they feel threatened. I mean, you can look right now, the SWIFT system to actually transfer money with the existing system, it's a financial Model T. It takes a couple of days to move money around the world with the SWIFT system. But with crypto, it's seconds. I mean, it's the Jetsons, and the SWIFT system is still the Flintstones.
Thank you. I was going to move on to our final panel member, Chris Fornof. Do we have Chris on the line?
Yes, I'm right here.
Hello, Chris. Thanks for being a part of the show.
Of course. Thanks for having me. I apologize. I'm in a bad location, so I think I've got video here, but hopefully the stories will make up for it.
Well, let's see if the stories do make up for it.
Well, fantastic. Thanks for inviting me here. And it was really good hearing panelists there with Dawn and Larry there. And Sam was the person that invited me to this thing. I have to say it's very fun. When I came here to Texas, I got to visit a friend of mine, and he works with Sam, and walking into the back room, and all of a sudden there's like this blasting heat wave in the back of this warehouse place. And I'm like, what is all that? Oh, we've got a Bitcoin mining farm over there.
That's how you got started. Yeah. That was your interest. Yeah. That initiated everything for you.
Right. Well, no, it's crazy because I mean, like, one of the things that doesn't get appreciated a lot is when people talk about like a lot of these abstract things like, Bitcoin or like, Ethereum, all those other things, the internet itself is a physical thing. It has a physical location and a physical process to it. And a lot of that gets abstracted away when, it's like, oh, it all happens in the cloud. Something happens somewhere. Well, with Bitcoin, there is a physical machine that takes electricity out of the wall, turns into heat, and randomly solves a math problem somewhere. And that math problem is a really hard math problem. And then it says, hey, I've got a solution that no one else in the world has. And then everyone else in the world with their Bitcoin mining farm says, yep, you got that. Congratulations. You get to have another Bitcoin.
Okay.
And that entire exercise of having machines solve math problems to take electricity, turn to heat, and then get a financial reward out is just a fascinating concept. I wish they were solving better math problems, though. I mean, because they literally chose problems based upon the uselessness of it, because they wanted something that was difficult to clone and cryptographically, break and such. Do you use that computing hardware? I mean, I think I don't know what the recent, you'd have to look it back up for the most recent calculation, but I think the last estimate I saw was like Bitcoin is literally drawing like 3% of like global power electricity.
Really? Wow.
I mean, Sam wasn't joking when he said, setting up like a hydroelectric dam for this stuff, and other things. Like literally, they're literally buying power plants just to power Bitcoin.
Wow.
So with that in mind... Yeah, with that in mind, you start wanting to wonder, it's like, well, like, what if you had it, instead of like solving useless problems, what if you started doing things like, I don't know, like, folding at home, these, distributed computing array for doing like, like coronavirus or medical research where you do like protein folding or science calculations. Right. Yeah. Well, it means that the value is less of I bought a mining rig, or I bought low, sold high, or I got in because I heard about the hype and this new awesome coin someone's launching. It gets really interesting when you start looking at the idea of not just decentralization for the sake of decentralization, but accomplishing a larger objective. When you can say, hey, we've got 3% of the global power grid solving a problem using the most powerful computers that we know how to make. What more can that starts to get really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, what more can we do to solve other issues?
Right.
Chris, I enjoy your enthusiasm. Let me ask Dawn real quick if she's got anything she wants to add, and I'm coming back to you.
I think a couple of things. I think not everyone has to be involved in mining to be involved, in Bitcoin. Okay. The regular guy, I'm just a regular person, and I got involved in Bitcoin, and I don't mind. I purchase and hold the Bitcoin and use it.
All right.
And, I really think what we need to look at and what the opportunity Bitcoin brings us is that ability to have control over our own finances. I'm to the point made that, there's going to be a U.S. aircraft carrier somewhere if we want to get out of, if the U.S. dollar is not going to be the world currency status. But, every world currency status change has involved a war. It happened when the, British pound used to be the currency that was established. But war comes in all kinds of shapes and forms. It doesn't have to be a war between two countries to see which, again, political system is going to control our money.
Right.
It could also be where the people take that back their power back by using cryptocurrency to do that. And I know that can seem like a view more on the libertarian side, but I'm actually a liberal Democrat. And this is coming even from a liberal Democrat. And that kind of idea has gotten so pervasive of people being fed up with the monetary system. Henry Ford famously said that the people of the nation don't understand the banking and monetary system, for if they did, there'd be a revolution tomorrow. So I think we don't need to really overthink, all the mining and all that real complex issues of Bitcoin for it to really have a change and impact in our world.
Larry, I saw you nodding your head. I think you kind of concurred with the Henry Ford comment.
Oh, that's true. That's true. I mean, if you want to get into fractional reserve banking, you could do a whole show on that. It's maybe absolutely amazing. It gets down to the Federal Reserve's interest rate is truly infinity if you do the math. It's a license to print money.
That's true. Sam, any closing comments?
Yeah, so I've been buying and holding Bitcoin, and I think it's a great way to garner wealth. And I bought it back in 2015, actually, and I still have it. And
good.
Yeah.
Good. And Chris, any closing comments? I know we got you in late. I'm sorry, but
I appreciate you inviting me on here, and it's been fun getting to hear the other people, panelists here. Something fun just to look at for people that want to learn more information. Watching Mr. Robot is a fictional TV show, just wrapped its final season. Absolutely amazing. One of the main plot lines covers around Bitcoin stuff, and it's one of the most technically accurate but also entertaining shows I've seen on the topic. Another thing to look at is, if you want to learn about fractional reserves and all other things, there's a book called The Creature from Jekyll Isle. It's a 1,000-page tome of ridiculousness, but it covers the history of the Federal Reserve and how monetary policy can cover things. And lastly, if you haven't signed up for Disney Plus yet, I'm not sponsored by them, but go sign up and watch Hamilton, because, that's where the whole American
That's where it started. That's absolutely. I enjoyed the dichotomy of all the panel members today, the good and the bad, the highs and the low. It's really been a fascinating read. Dawn, thank you. Larry LaBorde, thank you for your time and getting us kicked off. Sam, thank you for hanging in there with us. And Chris, I'm glad we got you on the call as well. It's been fascinating, and your inputs have been valuable, I think, to the viewers and listeners taking part of the show. I really appreciate you being a part of it.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, everyone. I wanted to thank our sponsors, Rig Wealth Management. Rig Wealth Management is a financial wealth management company. They, I know them. I've worked with them for a long time now, and they're a nationwide company based in Dallas, but rigwealthmanagement.com. Also, I want to thank the support from Children's Miracle Network Hospitals. Children's Miracle Network serving children in medical needs at hospitals, 170 hospitals across the country. When you have the opportunity to give to Children's Miracle Network Hospitals, please do so, and do so generously. It's for the kids. I want to thank my crew and staff, Lori, Nicola, and Jessica, for all the hard work, and our crewman Tony with UBNGO. Sorry, Tony, but I wanted to thank them as well. Thank you again to Larry LaBorde, Dawn Melosh, Sam Cheatham, and Chris Fornof for being in the show today. We couldn't have done it without you. We hope everyone at home learned something, and maybe you're a little smarter today than when you woke up this morning. So I appreciate you being part of the show, and thank you for your time invested. Remember, America, stay connected. I'm Rob Dalton.